Let's keep this thing going. We're having so much fun with this Duke basketball season. Why stop now? Arizona, the next opponent due up for Duke, and there were a couple of things that we saw in the games over this weekend against Mount St. Mary's and against Baylor that we would love to see replicated for Duke basketball moving forward. All of that right here on Locked On Blue Devils.
You are Locked On Blue Devils, your daily podcast on the Duke Blue Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everybody. Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Blue Devils podcast. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you so much for joining us here today on Tuesday, March 25th, 2025. As Locked On Blue Devils is your one-stop shop where we discuss everything going on inside the life of Duke athletics. Today, we're talking about the Duke men's basketball team getting set for a Sweet 16 matchup against the Arizona Wildcats, fresh off of a victory over the Baylor Bears. And who better to break all this down with than our very good friend from Devils Illustrated, Conor O'Neill, who will join us on today's program. If you have not done so already, please be sure to follow and subscribe to Locked On Blue Devils for free, wherever it is that you get your podcasts. Leave us a 5-star rating and written review on the podcast platform, Apple Podcasts in particular. It really helps out those algorithms for us to be able to be found and continue to grow this community. Also, if you have not done so already, be sure to follow us and subscribe to our show each and every day on YouTube, where you can watch the show. You can see our guests who join us each and every day and continue to grow this Duke basketball community that we love so much. Again, want to give a big time shout out to the Duke women's basketball team, who is also heading to the Sweet 16. They'll be playing in Birmingham a little bit later this week, so super excited about that. But Duke, meanwhile, on the men's side, really impressive wins in Raleigh this weekend. And who better to join us right now than the aforementioned Conor O'Neill, who was there in person. He's sitting courtside, doing the media festivities, and watching Duke basketball punch their ticket once again to the Sweet 16. I hope you're doing well, Conor.
Doing well. Waking myself up and trying to get a little bit of R&R before heading up to Newark.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting week for Duke. Hopefully they've got 2 games coming up in Newark this week as they're continuing to push towards yet another national championship. It'd be the first under head coach Jon Scheyer. We know all of that, but let's focus on the games that just played out there in Raleigh. When you look at, let's start with the Mount St. Mary's game in particular, a game in which, there was really no chance for them. What jumps out to you?
Yeah, the only thing to really watch for was Cooper and his ankle. And I think 98 seconds in, he goes up for a transition layup on a feed from Tyrese Proctor and lands hard, and he gets up. And I mean, not to oversimplify a 93-49 game, but that was kind of all we needed to see, right? Like, he was fine. He put together a pretty complete stat line. I think it was like 14-7-4 or 14-9-4, something like that. And only 22 minutes. So they were able to keep his minutes down. That led to a little bit of questioning of Jon Scheyer afterward. Just, was he on a pitch count or was that intentional? And Jon basically told us he could have played longer without saying it. He basically said if the game was actually competitive, Cooper would have played longer in that game. It just, the one thing is, and it applies kind of to the Baylor game too. I'm out there looking at Mount St. Mary's, and they've got 6 foot and 6'1" guards, and they get out there for their matchups, and they're getting guarded by 6'6" Tyrese Proctor, 6'6" looks like a linebacker for that old cliche. Sion James. It's like this guy plays my position, like he's my matchup. So, not that you're going to take pity on a team that is in the NCAA tournament, because they're a good team. They're in the NCAA tournament. It really sets in, and we hadn't seen it since November and December, Duke against a mid-major or a low major. But you really get a sense of where Duke's size and athleticism sets them apart from those types of teams.
And you really hope that the size and athleticism can continue to be a storyline for this team, even when you go up against rosters who were a little bit more on an even playing scale with this Duke basketball team. And yet Duke is still, as we've talked about all season, the tallest team in America. The length is something that bothers everybody. You can scout it, but it's something totally different to go up against it head-to-head, and that's what so many of these teams have found out as soon as they play Duke. So looking at Friday's game, talking about the win over Mount St. Mary's, right before it starts, you're seeing a good game unfold right in front of you between Baylor and Mississippi State. And everybody's wondering, all right, the winner's going to get Duke. Who's it going to be? And ultimately, in the end, Baylor prevails. And all of a sudden, Jeremy Roach was a big storyline going into the week as soon as the bracket was unveiled, and he became an even bigger one once the stage was set. Leading up to the game, the events afterwards, just give us a couple of seconds here on Jeremy Roach in particular. What did you find most fascinating with this guy that is so beloved by Jon Scheyer, this coaching staff, this fan base, as they were having to play him in an NCAA tournament game where the loser would see their season come to an end?
Yeah, my main takeaway is just kind of the way Jeremy is. He's got fire to him. He'll give you a peek, though. He's not going to show it all, but there was a clip I saw of him. He's probably, we can call it what it was. He hooks Cooper Flagg to get a layup in the game on Sunday and gives him a little tap on the chest on his way past him. He told us, on the podium going into the game, he didn't want to make it out to be more than it was. And God, I can remember him saying that about the Final Four in New Orleans. I can remember him saying that about the rematch against Carolina the following year, when it was kind of that exorcism game where they beat Carolina and Cameron, and Derek Lively had the monster game, only scoring 4 points. Like, Jeremy's always going to be a guy that tells you, we're not going to make this more than it is. We're going to take this as any other game. But he's also going to give you but it's not any other game. Like, he understands the magnitude, the severity of what's at stake. So I miss watching Jeremy. I miss covering Jeremy. He was a guy that you could go to in the locker room that would not, for lack of a better term, BS you. He'd tell things the way they were, and it was fun to be around him just one more weekend.
Very clearly, he loves basketball, and so now we'll get to see his career continue as he works towards a pro playing career. Not quite sure what that looks like at the next level, but obviously going to get to be a part of this Duke world forever. Jon Scheyer asked about it after the game and what he said in that line. And just told him that he loved them, which I certainly love to see. Jeremy Roach, unfortunately, with the towel over his head, really, really upset over a loss, as any big-time competitor would be once you see the season come to an end. There was a big embrace between him and Tyrese Proctor in the line afterwards, having played together for 2 years. And for Duke, it was just another step in their journey as they're trying to go and win it all. And now they're on to the Sweet 16 to take on Arizona. So we'll talk a little bit more in depth about that Baylor game in particular and some other standout performances for Duke. But first, we need to take a timeout here on Locked On Blue Devils. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends at Nissan. The Armada Team of the Week is brought to you by our friends over at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. Duke has already been highlighted in this, so this week they want to highlight the clear-cut team of the week being the Arkansas Razorbacks. Despite losing their first 5 SEC games, Coach Cal's Hogs found their way through the most rugged conference in college basketball to not only make the NCAA tournament, but knock off back-to-back national champion and Hall of Fame coaches en route to the Sweet 16. They've accomplished all of this without their second leading scorer, Boogie Fland, for most of SEC play, and without leading scorer and rebounder, Adu Thiro, so far in the NCAA tournament. When it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer, and that's exactly what the Arkansas Razorbacks have done. It's clear that the team of the week is out here ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. Take the Nissan Armada, Nissan Rogue, or Nissan Pathfinder and go find your next big adventure. Go shop NissanUSA.com, a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils. Okay, set to move forward here with our pal Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated talking about Duke's win over Baylor. And we'll show some love here to Tyrese Proctor, displaying him on the screen after his performance against Baylor, where he scores 25 points on 7 3-point shots made. And you could tell just watching his body language, watching the way he was shooting the ball throughout the course of the game, he was really dialed in, Conor. Big time performance for Tyrese Proctor as he was super, super dialed in, my friend.
Yeah, sorry, cut out on me there for a second, but I think I get the gist of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
His poise and his confidence, just, it's easy to say it when a guy goes out there and makes 7 threes. But you can tell it before he makes the first one or before he makes the second or third one. He's so dialed in. He keeps telling us in the locker room that he trusts his work. Honestly, it's kind of reminiscent of just what he was telling us less than 2 months ago. If you remember back, he had in the game at Wake Forest, he had a terrible shooting game. I think the only 3 he made was a late shot clock prayer grenade type of make, and it was in a big moment. And then I think he had a pretty poor shooting game, whoever they played between Wake and Carolina. Was it both of them back to back?
I think so. Yeah, I'm having a hard time remembering. There've been so many great games for this team.
Anyway, he was in a shooting slump like end of January, and then he came out against Carolina and scored 18, 19 points, something like that. He had a really good shooting game. He's just never been down for too long this year. And as I was talking to my buddy Rod Baxley with the Fayetteville Observer, he kept joking, given the ACC tournament win, championship game when he made 6 threes, and then he makes 6 against Mount St. Mary's. Rod's line was, I like Duke's chances to win games if Tyrese Proctor is going to make 6 threes a game. So he was on 6, and I got the tweet off when he was on 6, and then he hit a 7th one, and Rod made sure to come find me after the Baylor game and say, I like their chances if he makes 7 too.
Just in case that wasn't obvious. Yeah, if he's able to knock in a lot from the outside, that's the case. There was the Monday NC State game in between Wake and North Carolina. That's called podcasting on the fly, folks, for Conor and I, where we're having to do research as we go here. But certainly in a rhythm, certainly in a groove, and he's going to continue to climb up draft boards at this rate if he continues to do this, given his size, given what he can do on the defensive end of the floor. I think the playmaking is there at times. This has been fun to watch, and I hope he's able to continue it over these next couple of games and keep leading Duke to these big victories, because Arizona is going to be a big test coming up for the Blue Devils as well. Looking at the Baylor game even further, though, and to your point, when you look at Mount St. Mary's, the big question we had, 60, 90, 2 minutes, 5 minutes throughout the game, how's Cooper Flagg doing? How's his body holding up after missing the majority of the ACC tournament? What does that look like for him? Well, he puts in 18 points, has a baseline alley-oop where he looked like his normal self, and looking at the box score even further for Cooper and some of these guys, felt like he was really dialed in.
The funniest thing to me about Cooper's games like this are he had 15 in the first half, and he only scores 3 points in the second half. I didn't check his rebounds and assists at halftime like I should, but I'm pretty sure out of the 15 combined there with rebounds and assists, probably about 10 to 11 came in the second half. Like he scores and scores. He's a good scorer. And then it's almost like he decides, okay, I've gotten enough of mine. It's time for me to involve everybody else here. It's time for me to look for their shots and set them up. I mean, he was clearly, once Tyrese hit a couple more in the second half, he was clearly looking to get Tyrese the ball in shot slots. He was looking for Tyrese in his spots. And it's just, I think we take it for granted. We've seen it for 36 games, or I guess 33 and a half, given he missed the second half of Georgia Tech and the 2 after it. But he's such a complete player. He's able to kind of compartmentalize everything that he does for a team on the score sheet, and then everything else he does to make his teammates better. He is a generational talent. The other part of it is he had one foul, I think, in the first 2 minutes of the game, maybe in the first minute, 80 feet from the basket that Duke was defending, and then picked up his second with about 7 minutes left on an offensive foul.
Yeah.
And you see right there on the box score, if you're watching, he finished with 2 fouls.
Right.
He's never he never put himself in jeopardy of having to go to the bench with foul trouble in the second half. John put him back in there in the first half with 2, and he stayed out of trouble. And you think about the other side of the coin, Baylor's only chance to win this game was getting 40-ish minutes out of Norchad Omier, and he got into foul trouble. Duke decided they were going to go at him, and then when they took him out for Dubrovcic, they went right at his replacement because he could not handle what Duke had on the interior. And so in the second half, it just became a game of let's get Con Knipple or Tyrese or somebody matched up on Norchad Omier and drive him, and he's not going to foul because he don't want to foul out of his last game. So
yeah,
it's pretty surgical. It's really easy for me to explain. It's not so easy to actually go out and do on the court and execute, but this team is at a point where they make some of the difficult things look really easy and really simple.
Yeah, they do. And if they continue to do that, then they're going to continue to be in successful positions like this to that point, making it look like a lot easier than it is. When you look at this box score, when you watch the game unfold, Baylor ultimately wins the rebounding battle, 32-29 over Duke. Baylor was getting a lot of second chances, did a really good job getting those offensive rebounds, and yet it didn't bother Duke on the other end of the floor. They were still able to share the basketball and open up good shots for teammates as Duke finished this game with 17 assists on 29 made field goals, and then they attacked the rim. They got fouled. They went to the free throw line. There was the big disparity on that end, but I think that's credit to what Duke was able to do to be more aggressive and attacking the rim. When they saw they were at a little bit of a disadvantage in the rebounding department, they found other ways to kind of win this basketball game.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. We talk about fouls and free throws like teams are guaranteed to have the same number
right
at the end of games. The coach who was the losing coach in the first game in Raleigh on Sunday, sometimes I think he feels that way. And there's nothing in basketball's rules that says both teams have to attempt the same amount of free throws. Both teams have to be called for the same amount of fouls.
That's UConn's Dan Hurley for those who can't keep up with us. But yeah.
I just Duke's aggressiveness works for them. They do a great job of playing without fouling. They've done it all year. And again, I mean, you run out of oxygen to talk about the ways this team impresses you. But that was one of the things I was talking to the freshmen early in the season about was they were, especially Cooper and Con, they were trying to figure out how to play the college game and play defense without fouling. And there were some games early in the season in Cameron against, Wofford and Incarnate Word, Seattle, those types of teams that they were finding their way with how much contact they could get away with and it wouldn't be called, and how much was over the line and would get fouls called on them and get cheap ones assessed. So for a team of freshmen, I always think that's one of the most difficult adjustments to make in college basketball. It's difficult for a number of reasons. One, it's college refs as opposed to high school refs. Two, it's Cooper Flagg was 17 when I'm talking about the games that we were talking to him. He's playing against 21, 22, and 23-year-olds.
Yeah.
He's got a 24-year-old teammate in Mason Gillis. Like, he's got to understand he's playing some grown men. So these guys are special. Like, this team's special, just like we've said all year.
And now the journey takes them to New Jersey, where they're going to take on the Arizona Wildcats in the Sweet 16. So we'll talk about that game, set up a little bit more of the action in March Madness after we take our final break here on today's show. Locked On Blue Devils here today, brought to you by our friends at Supply House. Get the supplies you need from the site made for the skilled trades. Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the reliable way to order products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from 400-plus top brands, you'll find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. Do you need help with an order? Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always talk to a real person. And for the trade pros looking for an extra edge, their free Trade Master program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage. Now it's your turn. Join the Trade Master program today at supplyhouse.com/TM and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, use promo code SH5 for 5% off your first order. That's supplyhouse.com. Supply House is a proud sponsor of Locked On Blue Devils.
The NCAA tournament is here, and so is the bracket breakdown.
Locked On Podcast Network and Amazon Fire TV channels are teaming up to deliver NCAA tournament coverage like never before. Watch studio shows featuring former players and Locked On's local experts as they guide you through every upset, buzzer beater, and bracket matchup.
Stream it all for free on Amazon Fire TV channel. Search Bracket Breakdown to see it all for free.
It's your team every day.
That's Isaac Shade and Andy Patton from Locked On College Basketball, our good partnership with Amazon Fire TV for all NCAA tournament coverage. I've been featured on a few shows because Duke continues to win, and I want to continue to support what this company's doing. Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Let's get back to our show. Okay, Conor O'Neill from Devils Illustrated is here with us. We're talking about Duke basketball as they get ready to go on to the Sweet 16 and play a familiar foe in the Arizona Wildcats, who Duke already saw once this year in November. Both of these teams, I would say, though, are a little bit more different than they were the last time they met. How should Duke feel going into this matchup this upcoming Thursday?
I think Duke should feel like there is one faucet that they have to shut off, and you know where it goes. Caleb Love was fantastic in Arizona's win over Oregon late Sunday night into Monday morning, I think. The game ended after midnight on the East Coast. He's the one. Like, it was always going to be Caleb Love. I know what you said about the Mississippi State Baylor game. I always thought that was going to be a Baylor win because that's the way these storylines work. It was always going to be Jeremy Roach. It was always going to be Caleb Love.
And it is Caleb Love. Yep.
Yeah, that's the one. I mean, Arizona is a good team with other than Caleb Love. But he was the engine that drove them in the second round win, and that's the first key that you look at if you're Duke and say, we cannot let this guy beat us.
That's why you got to stop. And for Arizona, they're going to see a Duke team that did not play somebody like Isaiah Evans in the first matchup, in that first meeting. Caleb Foster was still starting for Duke. Now it's Sion James. So Duke is even different in their own right when they last played in November. I mean, a lot has changed. It's kind of crazy to go back and think about, when that game's unfolding, what are the biggest differences between these two teams? But simply put, some of the guys on the floor were either not playing as much or Malik Brown had a big role. His injury, is taking him out of the deal here for Duke. So very, very interesting to see how all of this will continue to kind of create storylines this week.
Yeah. To add one more name in there, just as you're rattling, I would be shocked if Patrick Ongba played any in the first game out there.
Right. I don't think he did.
Yeah. It feels like Mason Gillis wasn't playing that many minutes at that point in the year too.
Right.
And he's given great minutes. You can't say enough about the toughness that he brings. And that's there's either when people are listening to this, there is going to be, or there already is, a story up on Devils Illustrated about Mason and the toughness that he brings, and him sporting a scratch across his like Adam's apple and then one across the side of his face after the Baylor game. he's a guy that's invaluable in the toughness and what he brings to Duke. But yeah, it's a little bit of a rubber match, right? Like both teams won on the other team's home court the last couple of years in this home and home series. This is
so
going to
we'll
be the
settle
one.
it in a neutral site. Yeah.
Yeah. Makes sense to me. The last time they played in the tournament, Duke has a little, not that any Duke players are thinking about this, but certainly it's fresh for Duke fans still, was 2011 in the Sweet 16 when Duke was a 1 seed and Arizona knocked them off with I think it was a 16-point win, 93-77. And that's how Kyrie Irving's season with Duke ended. That's how Nolan Smith and Kyle Singler's Duke careers ended, I believe. So
Derek Williams.
There's a lot of storied history between Duke and Arizona, and this will be the latest chapter.
Yeah, we've seen a lot of the kind of metrics bring up the 2001 Duke team. Obviously, 99 is still the standard, but that 01 team wins the national title over Arizona. So here we are. Of course, it's fitting. We've got a date with the Wildcats and Duke's pursuit of a national championship, the first under head coach John Scheyer. Should they win, they'll play the winner of Alabama and BYU. That game will be played before Duke takes the floor. That game or any of these other Sweet 16 matchups that you could see here on the screen, Conor, that you find most interesting. 7 teams from the SEC, just 1 from the ACC, and then 4 each from the Big 12 and Big 10.
I can tell you right now, I guess don't take this to the bank, but if Duke's game actually starts at 9:40 on Thursday night, I will be shocked. Alabama and BYU are going to get up and down the court and make a ton of shots on each other. The one team is probably going to score in triple digits, and I wouldn't be surprised if both of them wind up. They both have just such elite shot making, and they're going to run.
Defense optional.
Right. That's a big one. I'll tell you what, it is a little bit because of my roots. I grew up in Maryland. I want to see Maryland, Florida, just because of the fun that Derek Queen brings. Flagg's Mount Verde teammate. He's the only Mount Verde guy from last year's team left in the tournament after 2 of them got eliminated in Raleigh on Sunday afternoon. But Derek Queen hits the tournament's only buzzer beater so far to get Maryland past Colorado State. That's going to be a really interesting game because Florida was on the ropes for a while. I watched it. If not for some, I don't know what our limitations are here on Locked On, but some big shots from Walter Clayton.
Sure.
And you know where I'm going. I want to say.
Yep. We'll keep it there. But yeah, absolutely.
That guy's good.
He was locked in, you could say. Not locked on, but he was locked in.
He was.
Yeah.
And I mean, look, I've tried to defend the ACC a couple times in the last few years about the metrics and about the perception of the league, and it shouldn't have been looked at the way that it was. There's no defending it this year, just like there's no bashing what the SEC has done. Like there's no way to spin this other than the ACC is in a bad place. The SEC is in a great place. 7 SEC teams in the Sweet 16 is the most ever. It beats the ACC's record. In 2016, the ACC had 6 of them in. So it's something that it's not going to get solved this year, obviously, but something that the ACC needs to solve and do so quickly.
Yeah. We'll see if these new hires that have played out in the conference over the last 24, 48 hours will have any impact here. Also worth noting, today, March 24th, on this Monday, and this is our Tuesday episode, but talking on Monday, the very first day that the transfer portal has opened up. So we'll see if there's any added wrinkle there. I say that to mention as good of a time as any to go check out Devils Illustrated, Conor, and all the great work you've got there.
Yeah. God, I hope I don't have any transfer portal news to report on. I'm going to have enough on my plate here.
Yeah.
But yeah, please go check out Devils Illustrated. It is worth the price of a subscription to get unbiased, objective, in-depth analysis and coverage of Duke. Good coverage should cost a little bit. My favorite movie is The Dark Knight, and I love the line that if you're good at something, never do it for free. So please go check it out. There are free stories up there. Like if you go on there, you're going to be able to read some of it. But if you want to be able to read all of it, premium subscription. It's about $8.33 a month.
Yeah, you've got my endorsement. I'm a part of that community, so go and support the folks over there at Devils Illustrated. Conor, great to see you each and every week as always. Thanks for stopping by.
Thanks, JJ.
All right, that's Conor O'Neill joining us here on today's episode of Locked On Blue Devils. That's going to do it for our show here today. Thank you so much to everyone for watching. We're getting closer to Thursday's game against Arizona in the Sweet 16. We're back tomorrow to talk more things Duke basketball. As always, go Duke. I'll talk to you then. My name is JJ Jackson. Thank you and good day.